Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is the show in which we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. This, believe it or not, you won't know this, and you wouldn't have known this unless I told you. This is the third time I have recorded this show. And the first time, I made a complete blunder of what I thought was correct. The second time, I accidentally removed my temporary files from my computer due to trying to hunt down a virus. And then some updates happened in which, for a lack of a better word, completely made everything that I'd recorded previously wrong anyway. So, yeah, this is third attempt. All right, now we're going to get into today's show, and today's show is going to be a bit interesting because we're going to have, in all honesty, a mishmash of topics, most of which you all are probably going to be like, whoo, this is going to be action-packed and full of information, and it sort of is. First off, we're going to talk about the entities and the implications of the entities in the meta. Definitely, if I had an hour to go through and just say, hey, this is the impact of the entities for figures and as technically add-ons, then I would. But we're just going to focus on add-ons today, and then maybe when I actually do the full set review of War of Light, which most likely will probably be next week, just review what we have thus far. We can start looking at, figures, why they're good, why they're bad, all that other stuff. Then we're going to look at copycat changes, and then we're going to finally look at the implications of retirement. A whole lot in one show, so please bear with me. Strap on your thinking caps, and let's get going. All right, so first off, with the entities, and I do refer, it's going to get a little bit confusing, but I am going to use it like this. There is the entity, which is the White Lantern figure, and then there are entities, plural, which is pretty much those classification of those emotional spectrum, technically totems, but that's the best way of putting it. So we're going to just be careful when you hear me say something. I'm going to try to enunciate as best as I can. I can't say no promises, but I'll do the best job I can. All right, let's get going. First off, we're going to look at the possession ability. Now, the possession ability is awesome because it says entity possession. When the entity would be KO'd, or if you pay 25 points when building your force, place entity on another friendly character. Character's card, if that character is 25 points or less, has the fist or sharpshooter symbol, the shield or indomitable symbol, and the tiny or burst symbol. That character has entity keywords and can use the possessed ability with this character as the possessor. Okay, so they clearly define that this character is a possessor. When that character is KO'd, entity is removed from the game. Pure and simple. Okay, next up is possessed. Click the possessor's dial to the same click number as the character and change it during the game in the same way that is the character's same way that this character's dial changes at the beginning of each of your turns, or after this character takes or is healed of damage and actions resolve. You may choose one power showing on one possessor's dial and one combat value on one possessor's dial higher than the character's printed combat value. This character can use that power and modify that combat value by +1 until your next turn, or until it is healed or takes damage. If the possessor is turned to a KO click, it is removed from the game immediately. All right, now just summarize that for all of them. Quick notes. First off, once you use the possession thing, you get keywords. Yay. All right, this is great. The second thing is guess what? No matter what goes on, the entities are not resources. They are not relics. They are characters. They just happen to be characters that are able to affect things off of the map. Pure and simple. Okay? So, just mind you that if there's anything in the future that says, characters off the map get affected by blah, 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 or whatever else, characters on your force, this character is still on your force. So just be mindful that there are limitations here. They don't have some block restrictions and block protections that resources and relics have, okay? So the other thing is that you get to use powers. You don't possess them, you get to use them. So that's another great thing. All right, next up is in the possessed element, you're able to get +1 stat to a stat that's lower than the printed dial, which is good in general. Okay? Just good in general. It doesn't allow you to sort of replace and modify. I initially thought that, and I was wrong. Okay? The other thing that it allows you to do is steal a power. And this can be a big deal or no deal, depending on what you need and who you've attached your entity to. The last big thing is keywords. Let's say that you want to play a lantern battery, and you want to make so-and-so a member of the Lantern Corps so that they can get +1, whatever. +1 stats, all right? And you want to have, let's say, Orange Lantern keyworded team. Okay? So what you can do is just say, all right, I got Ophidian. I'm going to put Ophidian on Superman. Superman is now a member of the Orange Lanterns because guess what? On point of force construction, I get to put all the keywords that the entity has onto another character. There is other abuses there. I'm not going to go into that right now, but there is other abuses there. Some of which people have asked me, like, don't say anything. So there are other abuses there with keyword shenanigans. Keyword shenanigans. Again, these are characters. So if you go and look at other keyword shenanigan things, you can do some crazy stuff. Okay. So that's the big thing that we're taking in. What does this also let us know? Okay, duos can't use this, team bases can't use this, colossals can't use this, giants can't use this. So, because they don't have the symbols listed. But hey, if you have figures like I think it's Doom and Kang. It's either Doom and Kang or Superman and Flash. I forgot. But what happens is later down the dial, you get to pick a character and they no longer have duo attack. They have the standard print symbol. So you could then, if you were playing the entity on a force and he was a character and he died, or one of the entities died, they could be placed on top of the Kang and Doom duo after you pick who you're going to use. Another thing to note, just letting you know, there's no restrictions on how many of these you can play. Yes, the characters are unique, so you can only have like one entity, one Ophidian, one Parallax, one the Butcher, one the Predator, whatever, but you can put like 3 or 4 of these suckers on one guy. Okay, so there's no limit to how many that you can have on your force. And I know some people might spread that rumor like you only can have one, but there's nothing written down that says that's the limitation. All right, so let's move on and actually start looking at the entities themselves. First off, we'll start off with the White Lantern entity. The biggest thing that we're going to look at when we're using the entity attached to another figure is, are we trying to get defense? So we have a character with a 17 defense. We're going to try to get it up to an 18. Okay, we're not really using it for attack and movement because we have characters that usually have about 10 movement. I know, yeah, about 10 movement. We have characters that really round out between 8 to 10 movement on average. So 10 movement could help some characters, but just not most. Then you have the 4 damage. Now that can actually help out a lot of different characters. So we're mainly looking at defense and damage. The other thing that we have to be mindful of is that since we do get the powers of the entities, we also get their special powers. We have access to their special powers, and that's something that's really key. First key element number 1 is cosmic life, and I'm going to touch on that real briefly. You can access the regeneration in the quintessence, but you can't access the stop click. Because if you read how the stop clicks work, it's when that character takes damage and the power is revealed. But the entity isn't taking damage, it's turning the dial in equivalency to who it's attached to. So that's the first thing. The next thing is that you really look at it. If you're trying to get quint, if you need quintessence, I'm sorry, this is not the entity for you. Your force, your entity that you need is in another castle. Okay, so that is a big problem. So you're already looking at a character that already either A, has power cosmic or quintessence, or either B, has willpower or indomitable, or has some little trick where they don't take pushing damage. So that's the big thing. So when we're looking at the entity, the main thing that we're saying is that, hey, I need barrier, I need prob, I have a support piece that I need to make sure that I keep alive, or that becomes a little bit more flexible as the game progresses. The character already has perplex outwit, so adding on the potential to use barrier and probability control is another good thing. Another thing that I will sort of touch on a little bit more in depth later is that because you have to match up the click number, characters like Mark 7 Iron Man from Iron Man movie set, Iron Man 3 movie set, becomes a big deal because then you're putting them on, like, I think it's like click 5 or something like that. And in doing so, you're able to get lower down the dial on the entities. So let's say, hey, I'm playing, Mark 7 Iron Man. I'm technically on click 4. So when I start looking at dials and such, then I can say, hey, I need to go and pick up this character because I'm going to start on click 4. But here's the issue. If I start on click 4, then the entity may not be my best bet. Okay? So that's some interesting things to think about. So we can see definitely that once we start pairing up some interesting elements with the entity, we can do some great things. The one thing I will say is, for a standard character, once you get down to around the incapacitate, energy shield part with the perplex, you're already sort of hurting. And unfortunately, you won't be able to, for most characters, you're going to have like a 3 base damage still. And so you're really not going to benefit from getting a damage boost. Now, there are some characters that will. You might get a damage boost. But most likely, you're not going to get a stat boost. It's more of like, maybe I'll get something awesome. Now, the one thing I do want to touch on real quick is flow of life. And this is the part that I think if you're going to play the entity, you're really mainly playing it for. Flow of life. At the beginning of your turn, you may heal one adjacent character without the Black Lantern Corps keyword 1 click. Now, you might say, okay, Dark Logos, why is this awesome? Imagine for yourself the following. In a world where Bizarro rules the meta, there was one figure who said, you know what? Let's make our opponents cry more. It was the entity. The entity sits next to Bizarro every time he takes damage and gives him one more Zibbo token at the beginning of each turn. But the entity died and left Bizarro crying. But wait, what is this? In a sort of Patrick Swayze ghost-like moment, the entity possessed Bizarro's bestest enemy in Bizarro World language. And so they now buddy team up as support guy and Bizarro. All right, now all silliness aside, pretty much you just team them up with somebody, in Bizarro. So like the entity's on some guy that really doesn't matter, somebody that's able to stay on their first 2 clicks real easily, and you just sit next to Bizarro and laugh. That's pretty much it. And make people cry. You laugh, they cry. It's like a romantic comedy. It's like a romantic comedy. So definitely the entity, check it out. Next up is Ophidian. And Ophidian is quite interesting, mainly because Ophidian is telling us, hey, are you okay stat-wise? Okay, you're okay stat-wise. Oh, all right. I can sort of work with you. If you are completely crap on everything, I can make you baller for a moment. And that's really what Ophidian does. Ophidian says, hey, are you that one guy that has like no muscles, a bunch of acne, no ability to talk and communicate with other people clearly, and you're pretty much envious of those who can? You know what, homie? You can be that guy by stealing that guy's stuff. That's pretty much what it is. So let's look at that. You start off on your first click with Sidestep and Pulse Wave and Invulnerability and the special power, Desire of Greed. Ophidian can use Outwit. When he does, he can use the counter power or ability for as long as it's countered. Now, here's the thing that becomes awesome, is this. When you steal this special power, you can say, hey, I am going to gain Outwit, steal something from you that's going to make me awesome, plus get a plus stat on top of everything. So yeah, homie, win for me. Okay? So that's the first thing that you got to realize, is you could say Ophidian really benefits on a character with 3 or less base damage with a high attack. Because with 11 attack, you're not really going to get a bunch of benefit. But most likely, if you have a high attack, you're not going to have high movement, and you're most likely not going to have high defense. So you can sort of come back and say, you know what? I could use a 12 movement. I could really use a 12 movement, and that would be awesome with Sidestep. I can do many wonderful things with that. And that's where Ophidian comes in. That's how I see it. Then you sort of go down and you can get plasticity and not plasticity. You get your second special power, which is Cosmic Greed, which he can use Plasticity, Barrier, and Quintessence. You have to ask yourself this: do you have a character that needs activating? If yes, continue down the chart. If no, go back to start. Okay. Next, does this character have willpower or indomitable? If the answer is no, continue. If the answer is the answer is no, continue. If the answer is yes, start back from the beginning. Okay, keep going down. All right, can this character be outwitted? If the answer is yes, proceed. If the answer is no, start back at the beginning. All right, now we have a candidate for using Ophidian. We haven't lost much. Okay. And then not only have we not lost much, we are in a pretty much a permanent position of very good stats on attack, movement, and damage, and good power selection overall. You can't steal powers, but oh well, whatever. So that click 2 is pretty good. Definitely if you have a hypersonic speed piece, or you want to zone out your opponent, or if you really want to start applying barrier to zone out your opponent. And being able to have Quint makes it really awesome. Now, let's expand on the Quint. If I have Quint, then I can say, hey, man, I am going to pick another power on my first action, and then when I do my second action, before I'm going to do my second action, I'm going to pick this quintessence power. Now I don't take pushing damage, and everything's good to go. And when you start to look at it like that, it's like, oh, wow, wow, that's awesome. So there you go. Overall, getting hypersonic speed is sort of okay. There are a few characters that really do benefit from it. Other than that, super senses I'm not too happy on. Precision strike is okay as well. So good selection, good decent options. I just think that you're probably 9 times out of 10 are mainly looking at those first 2 clicks with Ophidian. Yeah, you're mainly looking at those first 2 clicks. Next up is Parallax. Now, Parallax is the one that I think is going to be the most meta. Yeah, he's just going to be the most meta. And I think he's going to be the one that you're going to see the most. Ophidian is probably going to be in a close second until we see the other selection of chases. And here's why. 12 attack, 4 damage, 10 movement, 17 defense, impervious, super awesome perplex that you get from the jump, and psychic blast and impervious. And you have access to stealth. Just everything that I have listed there is good. The number of viable options for various things going on in the meta is there. Your ability to really piss off your opponent is there. Your ability to manipulate your stats really reasonably is there. 3 out of 4 categories. It's a winner. It really is a winner in all manner of saying. First off, I'll have to say is, all right, well, second off, I'll have to say is like when we look at Cosmic Fear. Cosmic Fear, oh my gosh. Parallax can use Perplex, but only can decrease combat values. Parallax can use the Quintessence team ability. All that whole commentary about, oh, hey, look at it, you get Quintessence and you do the pushing and the putting pops. You know, that's bad Bill Cosby. But when you think about it, you have 5 clicks of Quintessence. 5. And it comes with a Perplex. So when you look at that, that's really strong. Then you're able to say, oh yeah, I'm able to up my attack by 1. So the stat differentiation between your opponent's defense and your attack value has now shrunk by 2. That's pretty major. Okay. Then you're also power cosmic, which means you can't be countered. So overall, that is really strong. Okay. The next thing that becomes really strong is the fact that, like I said, we have 5 clicks of that Quintessence access, and we have options between impervious, if we so choose, and invincibility, if we so choose. And that in and of itself is great. And, you know, because not all battles are going to be solved with Psychic Blast. I understand that. Progress down the dial, we get running shot pulse wave options, hypersonic speed options, charge options. And I know most characters won't get deep dial enough to get to click 6 and 7. But let's say hypothetically you do get to click 6 and 7 and you're alive. Grip of Fear. Opposing characters can't ignore pushing damage. That means, oh, my opponent also has an entity and they're using power cosmic. Not anymore. You can't ignore pushing damage. I can't outwit you, but you will take pushing damage. That is massive tempo control once you select that power. 4 damage still? Yeah, this is killer. So you're mainly looking at parallaxes for the following. I need a damage bump. I need an attack bump. Movement bump is questionable. Defense bump is questionable. But I'm also primarily looking at my power selection. Upfront Quint. And yeah, I don't think they fully thought that one through. I don't think so. Alright, next up is Adara. Well, actually, last up is Adara. Adara, it puts us in a very complicated position because Adara gives us very mediocre stats on everything And so we're stuck with power selection. Now you might say, hey, Dark Logos, what about that click 2 with that 19D? And I say, yeah, that's awesome. But if you're going to build your whole everything around by not being hit due to having +1 defense, then the only way that that's viable is if you have an 18 and then like energy shield deflection or combat reflexes. Then I can start to see like, aha, this is a good idea. Otherwise, not so much. The probability control, access to probability control is great. Now, the one thing I will say is if you're able to get to click 3 and 4 and not be completely crap when you get there, then Surge of Hope is pretty good. It allows friendly characters that use Empower Enhancement to treat characters that are 3 squares away as if they were adjacent for the use of the powers. So that's great. It allows your formation teams not to get completely hosed by energy explosion. But also on the other end, you are on click 3. And if you're using that as your formation, you are also not using your running shot. You are also not using your toughness or enhancement yourself. The other thing that becomes interesting, though, and I sort of didn't touch on it before, is because you can choose your power whenever you take damage, whenever you are healed, and it doesn't matter whose turn it is, or in at the beginning of your turn. So you have 3 to 4 different times that you can actually access the entities. If you play it right, what you can do is you can access with Adara, get the Surge of Hope, and then do whatever you're doing. Everybody else is using their whatever their enhancements. Okay, cool. Then you go and actually I replaced that. Take that back. You pick running shot, push, take damage, then use Surge of Hope. That's what I meant. There we go. Because you've taken damage from pushing damage. Bam. All right, now I pick Surge of Hope. All right. All my other guys, do what you do. So you can start to see there's some flexibility there that is really good. I think the main concern is how you are going to really be adaptive. And I think that's the big problem is with Adara, is that you have to think a lot more with Adara, and she gives you some nice boost on your damage mid dial, so you can rally a little bit. And I think that's probably it. If you're looking at the first half of the dial of I just need a movement bump and maybe a defense bump, and then mid dial you're like, my attack values are awesome, my damage values are crap, let me use Adara to supplement my damage, then yeah, then you could probably do something. So that's how I feel. I know there's some people out there be like, hey, Dark Logos, what about TK? What about probability control? And you can make a super support piece. And like, I agree, you could. But my problem comes in is you're using TK and you're using prob. What else are you doing with your stat mods? And I mean, if you use TK and you're not able to use the defense option, then we have a problem, because you're not going to be doing a damage attack. You're not using damage. So anyway, all right, quick moving and transitioning into another part of the meta with Copycat. Woo, man, my Kool-Aid high is starting to come down just a little bit. I mixed Crystal Light with powdered Gatorade, and I got something. Oh gosh, it's like it's not sugar crack, it's probably like sugar cocaine. Yeah, that's about it. It's probably sugar cocaine. I didn't sniff it, even though it does come in a powder. There we go. All right, let's get back to it. Copycat's ruling changes, just making it so that Copycat can't steal another Copycat, is a very important rules errata. So it does a couple of things. First off, It makes sure that everyone can use their copycat, even though copycat makes sure that your opponent can't use their figure that they brought to the table. But it does make it in a copycat versus copycat fight. It doesn't make one party completely in a dominate. Okay, let me use proper English. It does not create a situation anymore due to the errata in which one copycat player is able to shove another copycat player with two copycats at the end. Now, the other thing that's sort of cool is you might actually want to go second. So having a or let me phrase that. You want to have the option to pick second so that your opponent can steal whatever they want to steal and then you just steal it back. And I know that sounds dumb, but that's really what's going on, because now the leverage is actually in the person that goes second with copycat, not the person that goes first. So there's a lot of thought and advantages and disadvantages to be gained from that. What it also means is that if you have a team with copycat that you don't really mind any map that you play on, playing her on a non-theme team is actually pretty good. Playing her on for a lack of a better word, playing copycat on a non-generic or a min-max team, steps back. Playing copycat on a theme team does not necessarily have the same oomph as it did less than a month ago. So overall, there's a lot to sort of soak in and take in and think about. I think the major issue that as we are going forward is how our team's going to adapt to copycat, and I really do think that what's going to end up happening is we're just going to see more and more influx of characters that are over 100 points that have significant support abilities, and then we're going to see more and more use of the entities to sort of hedge in some of those major problems that have been brought up because of copycat. So like, oh wow, I can't really afford to put a 50 point support piece into my build. I can't afford to put in a 30 point support piece into my build. Oh, sign the entity, and yeah, copycat, come on, yeah, steal my guy. You get 30 points of so-and-so. I still have the entity attached to that same slot character, so I have a copycat with the entity and still's doing support stuff. I think the other thing is with the copycat changes, we might actually see more people play sub 30 or more sub 35 point characters. Because then, and you're still looking at, one or two, actually probably two major characters above 100 points. But you're also looking at characters that are really, really cheap to fill in your points so that your copycat player is sort of just pissed off that there's nothing of legit value to steal. And then you can go on and say like, hey, you know what? I'm going to abuse Pogs. Just going to keep abusing Pogs and bystander tokens, and you can steal them. Feel free to try to steal them, but you're not going to get much. And so you're going to be stuck with a crappy copycat on your side of the field. So I think maybe, just maybe, the evolution and major changes of the game is not going to, make it from, okay animal to super animal. It will make it to like, oh, hey, am I playing copycat? Is there a risk because of how people are playing? Yes. All right. Are people also adapting for Highfather? Yes. All right. So maybe copycat after Gen Con could phase out. I don't know. All right. Let's go into the last part of the show. We're going to look at retirement and look at the implications of retirement. So everything from Justice League all the way back to Incredible Hulk will be retired as of July 1st. Unfortunately, that's sort of sad because I was betting a lot that Justice League was still going to be modern age legal. But I think that they just did it more along the lines of saying, hey guys, just so there's not any confusion, we'll just make 10th anniversary the cutoff. That means that this is the last go around for M10 Iron Man and a few others. Enchantress being gone out the meta. Who else being gone out the meta? Enchantress being gone out the meta. Scarlet Witch being gone out the meta. Donald Blake being out the meta. Those are some major changes. And it mainly affects like Justice League and Avengers. But the fact that that we have Moira McTaggart in the meta now just sort of erases the hole left by Donald Blake. Even though you could say that Donald Blake would allow you to have the option of bringing in another attacker where Moira McTaggart doesn't. And I fully agree. Moira McTaggart doesn't give you the option to bring in another attacker. But Moira does give you the option of not paying as many points and putting in something else that's a lot more powerful. So that's just something to think about. As for offense-wise, yay, we won't have to worry about Chase Thanos outside of Golden Age games, so that's awesome. And really, most of the figures that we've relied upon have sort of faded out. Even the use of, common Superman from Superman set. I really haven't seen a lot of people talk about him or even say, is he viable for play? So that says something in and of itself. Overall, do I think this is a good move for the meta? Yes, I do. Do I think that we're probably going to start seeing some major shakeups? A little bit. With Mole Man being gone, the only thing that's going to happen is this Black Talon is going to come in and make those Shuma teams mystical teams now. That's about it. Nothing more, nothing less. So, I actually think that the loss of the Infinity Gauntlet, it makes me happy and sad at the same time. The main thing is the Infinity Gauntlet has already phased out the meta pretty much. I mean, we saw it briefly at the beginning of the year with the with the Silver Centurion teams, but now they're sort of gone. So, but that's mostly it. I think at this stage of the game design, we've already as players have abandoned most of the figures that that are going to be retired. It's just a matter of us shifting forward, and shifting forward, I think the way things are going, I don't see M10 Iron Man leaving the meta. I think M10 Iron Man is going to be a hardcore staple for the remainder of the year. I think also the major problems that we're going to start seeing show up with this current sort of formation is, hey, how are we actually functionally doing something positive to deal with Copycat? And I know I beat the dead horse and then turn it into glue, but with some of our options gone and we have a restricted play, I don't really see some of those bigger threats coming in. The next thing that we're going to start asking ourselves, what does playing big mean? And I mean, like, when it comes to colossals and comes to, multi-base figures. What does that mean? The second thing that is going to, definitely come up is we really haven't seen vehicles in the meta used really well outside of the police motorcycle. So what's next? What's our future development? Are we going to see a return of the bat cycle? Are we going to see a return of the Batmobile? Are we going to see, the invisible jet? There's some legit questions, when it definitely comes to support and deployment. And I really do think that the entities are going to be how we fill in for support. I just do. Now, does that mean, that sucks if you don't have them? Pretty much, yeah. But I think that's just the way that WizKids is designing things right now. All right, to dick-a-doo. I'd like to thank y'all for listening. If you want, you can hit that subscribe button. Helps me out a little bit more than I care to admit. And then, if you want to know of any new shows coming out, you can follow me on Twitter. It came from outer space. And then told me that I need to stop re-recording podcasts 5 times. You can check out my musings and other cool stuff that I put on Twitter. Also, I'll have codes and stuff on Twitter from time to time to reward those that follow me on Twitter. You can also email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com if you wish to opine. Keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. Tell me how your War of Light events have gone. Mine is next week. So by the time you hear the next podcast, I still will not have played War of Light. Possibly, depending on when I put it up. So definitely tell me your thoughts. I was told by a grand information analysis person named Devin that you only get to deal with odd characters in this round. So that means some interesting things. One thing it does mean is the Beethoven is freaking broke, and you better pull one or else you're going to have problems. Same thing with Parallax Kyle Rayner. He's a little broke. But that's about it. Yeah. You can follow the blog, startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. You can go there to donate. Again, everything goes towards the show. I have someone donating a video camera, so yay. Also, in the comments below or email me, can y'all point me to a good video editing software that's free, or at least under $50? I can't afford Vega or any of that stuff, so I need something on the cheap. So definitely let me know what's up and how we can go from there. But definitely with the blog, donating, everything goes towards back to you, the listeners. I've mailed out some Pogs, some EVA Pogs and whatnot, and hopefully here soon I will be able to do some more contests. Yeah, and definitely when you check out the blog, you'll see my random musings and what I have to say about this, that, and the other. And usually the buy list for the set that's out, the major set that's out. So definitely check that out if you're looking at, making some major decisions about purchasing some heroclix. Yeah. So last announcement. Melodrama. Are you ready for it? I'm going to the Tulsa Rock, and I'm going to Gen Con. That is correct. I am going to Gen Con this year. I've paid for my ticket. I have got my hotel room. I just need transportation back between my hotel room and the the convention center, but I think I've gotten that in part hopefully taken care of. But I am going to Gen Con. So if you're going to Gen Con, hope to see you there. Also, I'm hoping to record an episode of the Starting Over podcast in the quarry there, and I'm also hoping to give you some very frequent updates about what's going on, what I've seen, implications, and whatnot. What does this mean for the show? At this stage, I am not taking solicitations for, please, man, can you buy this for me at Gen Con? I'll give you money. I'm not doing that. So if you want to donate to me for me to buy something, I'm not going to do that. I already have enough people that I've spoken to previously that have already sort of locked in that capability if I'm able to get as much product as folks are wanting, which is really questionable at this stage. The next thing is that also means like, yeah, I'm probably not going to be giving away con LEs or anything like that, because I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be competing for the world championship. You might say, well, hey, will that affect anything else? Let's just say I am training and reading and training, maybe more reading than training, but definitely, it's interesting. So, you know, hey, pray for our brother. Want to make, hopefully, Blue Marvel or some other cool character. But yeah, so that's the major announcement. So leave your comments below. Also at this stage, my team sort of fell apart. I was trying to create a team for team events. If you know anyone that might be interested, I may be up for being on a team. Yeah, but I'm a little bit questionable right now about the team thing. Definitely considering that the schedule has you playing heroclix for Modern Age Championship from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. you're playing for the team stuff, and then you come back and you do it again the next day. And then you're talking about travel between your hotel and the floor and all that stuff just being a little bit annoying. So yeah, also I am not taking any request of, can I bunk with you, Dark Logos? No, you can't bunk with me. No. Definitely no. Alright, so that's it. Thank you for listening. And remember, we all have to start over sometime.